Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the EAP Counsellor Podcast, the place where we talk about what really matters when it comes to people, workplaces, and well-being. Today's conversation is one I've been genuinely really looking forward to because we're diving into leadership, but not the polished corporate ticker box version. We're talking about real leadership, human leadership, the kind that works. Joining me today is Donna Morrison, a strategic leadership development expert, the founder of Mentor My Success. Love your business name, Donna. And someone who brings not only decades of experience in leadership and business, but also lived experience, deep compassion, and a powerful advocacy, I always struggle on that word, for neurodivergent individuals and inclusive leadership. Donna works with leaders and organisations to build stronger, healthier workplaces. And honestly, the way she approaches leadership is exactly what we need more of right now. Donna, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Hi, Lou. It's absolutely great to be here. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
I know. I've been looking forward to it all week. The moment I met you, and we've had some Zoom catch-ups and quite a few chats. I always walk away feeling very inspired and energized as well. So you're the perfect guest to have on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So let's start here. For people meeting you for the first time, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and what led you into leadership development and the work that you do today?
Sure. So I'm actually originally one of Australia's first female electricians. I did my trade back in 1984, which makes me sound super old. But I was a young woman in a space where that just wasn't done at that particular time. We could be receptionists, we could be, PAs and things like that. And I knew I really did not want to sit in an office for the rest of my life. And I love working with my hands. So I did my trade. And then I went on to, when I was 21, I moved across the country from Sydney to Perth, bought my first house, and started running business. I ran my first business at 14, and I've run business my entire life, all sorts of different businesses. I've worked in the not-for-profit sector, I've worked in the for-profit sector, in so many different industries. I love to learn and I love to change it up. When I get really good at something, I go, okay, I tick that box, and then I start something new.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely a person who is a lifelong learner. And for me, leadership is an internal thing. It's not a title. It's not something that we need to achieve out there. It's something that we achieve on the inside.
I love that. And that's a term that I don't hear very often from people. Often when I ask about leadership and what is it, what does it mean? I hear lots of different things, but I haven't heard it in the way that you've described it, and I love it. I think, it just makes it so human and so purposeful.
Absolutely. It's how, the way that I think about it is, it's how you, and this is my catch cry in my business, get up, dress up, show up.
Right.
So it's how you do that every day. It's how you show up for yourself. It's how you show up for the people in your world. And then if you're a manager or a leader at work, it's then how you show up for the people in your care. And I think it's something that people don't realize. It's really an everyday. It's how you show up in your world. Do you show up in a way that your decisions and everything support who you are and who you're trying to be?
Absolutely. And, as we know, and I think this is important for our listeners to know, how we show up as leaders, it sets the tone too, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Absolutely.
So, just so important that you and I, as well as
Mm-hmm.
all leaders out there, are really tuning into how they're showing up, because that
Absolutely.
influence is massive.
And I
I
think it's more
also
important now than it's ever been before, because we have
absolutely.
so much, you know, fakeness in the world. We have so much, uh, like a lack of truth
Yes,
and a lack of authenticity. And I think more than ever, we need people to really show up for themselves, and not just in the way that they interact with people, but in their choices. What do you put your money behind? What do you support? And
mm,
does that really stand for the things that you want to be and to create in the world?
I love that. Whilst we're talking about today's world, I'm curious to know, from your perspective, what's not working in traditional leadership models anymore?
Oh, so much. Um, that whole system of uh, I'm the boss, you're the employee, you do what you're told, like,
Mm,
just shut up and put up,
yeah.
is not something that can continue. It's not something that ever worked. And it's certainly, I'm finding that I'm seeing businesses who want to step up, but maybe still have those old-fashioned leaders who are top down,
Yes.
do as you're told type people. But I think more and more businesses are realizing, and people are realizing, that that's not the way. People get, actually working with someone at the moment who's just been promoted in her role, great at her job,
Hmm.
been promoted. Now her job is leading people,
Yeah.
which is a completely different job to what she was doing before,
Yes.
and no skill set for that.
Mm.
And I see that probably more than anything else is people who are promoted into that position of leadership, but given no skills and no training to make that happen.
I agree with you. I see it all the time. People who are great on the tools, great at the doing, great at their
Yeah.
job, their role, and promoted without any training in regards to the
Mm-hmm.
human people side of things.
Exactly. And I think that managing people is the hardest part of any role.
Yes.
It doesn't matter whether you're a real estate agent or a brain scientist.
Mm.
Managing your team is the hardest part. It really is. And we don't, as a society, we don't just automatically upskill people.
No, no, sadly, but I'm hoping, the shifts that are happening, which we'll talk about in a moment. And I'm curious to know, oh, there's my cat, everybody. That is Sam. Sam is part of the podcast today. Thank you, Sam. He always steps in when we're talking about really important things, which we are right now.
Absolutely.
Before we go to, what do modern workplaces need? I just want to make a comment too about what you said. Humans are complex, aren't
Oh,
we? And, people are complex.
mm-hmm.
Managing people and the complexities of people and human behavior, it's a totally different ball game and wheelhouse of experience, as opposed to doing the role that most people who are promoted, are just so good at. And I think
Exactly.
the last 5 to 6 years has really shown how very complex we are. And oh, Samuel, off you go. How very down your pop. How very complex the world is as well, and the hustle and
Absolutely.
bustle, and that complexity, I feel like, it's just multiplied,
Mm-hmm.
and we need more than just little bits of information and knowledge. We
Absolutely.
need lots of training, conversations, education, don't we? Mentoring,
Absolutely.
all of the things to help people to be able to lead in today's world.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree. And as you say, in the last 5 or 6 years, so much has changed, and
Yes.
it's going to get faster.
Yes.
With AI as it stands at the moment, there's so much change in that space, and we're going from a space where knowledge was I guess something that everyone sought is, how can we be smarter in this space and have more knowledge? But with AI coming in, knowledge is no longer going to be the thing that sets people apart, because you can
Absolutely.
look up and find knowledge.
Yes.
So it's going to be so much more about people skills than it is about building knowledge.
Absolutely, because it's at our fingertips. Assuming, we're cross-checking and making sure that what we're learning, finding out, is correct. It's in the execution, isn't it, too?
Yes.
We can learn so much. We can know so much, but it's what we do with that. It's how we execute that. It's how we lead with that information that makes the difference.
Absolutely.
So tell me then, we're in a world of change, and we know that people are complex. What does modern leadership need to look like now?
That's a great question. I think more than anything else, we need to be so much more aware of psychological safety, and inclusion in the workplace. And as a person, so I'm a person with a disability, and I'm a neurodivergent person. So, I have complex needs when it comes to a workplace. And just saying that we've hired, people who are maybe neurodivergent, or we've hired people with a disability, doesn't mean that you've created an inclusive environment for those people. And if we don't have an inclusive environment, and if we don't have diverse teams that come from all sorts of different backgrounds, then we're just creating same over and over again. And I think that we need to be so much more aware of psychological safety and inclusion. I think we need to be balancing empathy and accountability.
Love
I
that.
see a lot of people or managers who say, I'm being really empathetic, but now the whole team's just walking over me and blah, blah, blah. One without the other doesn't work. And then obviously, as I said before, leadership is an inside job.
Yeah.
It starts with self-awareness. And if we're not aware of who we are and how we show up and where our triggers are,
yes,
when we're dealing with really difficult conversations with people, if we're not sure who we are, then we don't know where the line is between us and the person that we're speaking with. And so I think that workplaces really need to be seen to be training those what would have been deemed soft skills.
Yes.
I think now are essential skills.
I love that. And I wholeheartedly agree. What were the soft skills, which, by the way, interesting terminology, soft skills. They are absolutely the essential skills. They're the skills that we need to have psychologically safe workplaces.
Absolutely.
To also be psychologically safe leaders.
Yes.
And without awareness,
Yep. You're just sitting in this mucky, dirty space where no one has any kind of clarity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If it's okay to ask, because I know, you're in and out of workplaces as well, and you work with lots of leaders, and you are part of, business networking groups as well. So, like every day, you are dealing with, talking to, working with leaders and workplaces. Is there something that stands out for you at the moment that you're seeing in, whether it's in leaders or just, let's say, in workplaces, that concerns you?
Absolutely. That leaders are still being promoted for being great at their jobs.
Yeah.
But now their job's managing people, different skill set, and it's what creates spaces where bullying rises up and things like that. I think I did a poll with a bunch of business owners late last year, and we had something like 97% of people were saying that they had been bullied in their workplace.
Wow.
And for me, I believe that comes from leaders who are not trained, who are trying to hold on to some resemblance of control because they don't know how to stand in that calm, confident space.
Yes.
Feel like they've got to overpower someone else and things like that. And it's not their fault.
No.
You know, I see a lot of really bad leaders sometimes, you know, terrible, terrible things happening. And it's not necessarily their fault. If you're not going to train people on how to do those things well, then you're going to consistently have things like bullying and, you know, just people not coping.
Absolutely. And you know, in the training space too, you know, the educating around emotional intelligence is so important, isn't it? And I mean, I've just pulled one term, you know, one theme out of so many things that need to be trained. But, you know, if any leader was to have low emotional intelligence, that then is a real issue and a problem in regards to psychological safety.
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
Absolutely. You know, and when that happens, when someone's got a very low level of emotional intelligence, a low level of awareness about themselves, you know, they're going into workplaces and treating their team poorly, but they don't realize that that's even what's happening.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and that's really sad. And some of the things that I see in my job, which I'm sure you do as well, is some things are horrendous in the way that people are being treated in the workplace. And we look a lot at physical safety. You know, WorkSafe have always got things around coming home safe. You know, we don't really do that in relation to mental health.
Thankfully, that is changing and has, like, you know, the modern workplace in 2026, you know, 2025, 2026, the spotlight is on this area, which you and I are so excited about because it's just so needed. And well-being is holistic. It's not just one element. You know, it includes the whole of well-being.
Exactly. And, you know, when it comes to things like, you know, inclusive environments, inclusive environment does not mean that we've got, you know, a disabled person, we've got a neurodivergent person, we've got this. It's not a tick box. And I heard this analogy the other week and I thought it was fantastic. And it was about polar bears. So a polar bear on the ice is the fiercest animal out there. There's nothing more strong, more powerful than a polar bear out there. But if you take that polar bear and you put it in the middle of the desert, you have a whole different organ there. So it's not going to be any of those power things where it was in its natural environment. And when it comes to neurodiversity and people with different needs, we're often just putting that polar bear in the middle of the desert and expecting that they're going to be able to do a great job. And it's not the case.
I love that. And I feel like you're reading my mind because I was about to ask, like, to talk more about neurodivergency in the workplace. And because as we know, you're such a massive, passionate advocate in regards to inclusion, whether that be disability, neurodivergence, etc. And I'm wondering if it's okay for me to ask you to help our listeners in regards to what does neurodiversity mean in a workplace context?
Okay, so neurodiversity is just basically people who think differently. So they might have ADHD, they may be on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum, they may, like myself, have dyslexia. It's just basically a different way that their brains work. And so things like, let me think, pattern recognition, creativity, processing, neurodivergent people, especially ADHD, and I see a lot of ADHD people in the workplace, and certainly a lot of business owners with ADHD.
Yes.
It's almost like, are you a business owner tick? You're neurodivergent. And a lot of those people tell me that, the reason that they're not in standard workplaces is because standard workplaces don't work for a spicy brain. And it's not big things, it's a lot of little things. So someone who's neurodivergent might have trouble with bright lights, lots of noise. They might need more time to rebalance their nervous system, especially if lots is going on.
Yes.
In a workplace, a neurodivergent brain is an amazing thing because they're going to think so far outside the box. It's not funny, which is just fantastic. But we need to be able to take care of them so they're not the polar bear in the desert.
Yes.
And taking care of them may mean that, if you've got a big, noisy office environment, say a big, room full of people, that neurodivergent person might need to sit with their back to the wall. They might need to have less overhead lighting and things like that, just to help their nervous system feel better. And definitely if a person is ADHD and or on the spectrum, they'll work great under pressure.
Yes.
But when there's a long time frame, they will not do very well in that. So often what I'm saying to the leaders that I work with is, if you know that things are slow over the next month or few weeks, that you give a neurodivergent person an extra task to do in there, because the biggest issue with neurodivergence is boredom. As soon as things slow down and get boring, they just switch off. They work really well under pressure. But if you've got pressure all the time, then you've got a nervous system issue.
Absolutely.
So about being able to ride that roller coaster and rather than it be big ups and downs, try and make it a little bit smoother, just in
balance it out.
Yeah, to make sure that people are not burning out. Neurodivergent people, they're the kinds of people who are going to come in early and stay late and work through their lunch.
Yes.
Because they like getting everything done.
And yes, getting it done well and
yes,
right. And yes, yeah.
Or the people who leave it to the last minute because they know that they can smash it out and do a fantastic job. But if it's done over a long period, it just doesn't work for them. They need a certain level of pressure to be able to make things, just how that they work is they work better under pressure.
Fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing those insights. I've got a question for you, and I hope I'm sort of not, I don't know, coming out of left field here in regards to how you support leaders in this space, because I know that you do. And I'm sort of making up the question in my head as I'm talking here, because I know what I want to ask. I've just got to make sure that it comes out the right way. In regards to supporting, whether it's business owners or the workplaces, say, do you find it's through coaching, actually talking to and working with the owners, say if we talk owners or leaders, in regards to and it's not troubleshooting, that would be the wrong term, but, strategies that could be helpful and things to look out for, to notice, to do, versus how much support can you offer actually going into a workplace and seeing the environment? Like, do things just pop for you or it stand out if you're on site versus I hope I'm making sense, and listeners,
Mm-hmm.
I hope I just made sense there. I'm curious about that, Donna.
Yeah. I with every business that I work with, at some point I will be on site.
Yeah.
And the reason that I like to be on site is for exactly that. You sit and you just watch the interaction, and instantly I can go, right, okay, I can see what's happening there that we can sort out. I can see this. Sometimes it might be, I sat through, we did a planning lunch with a team out here in North Geelong. And, it was very much for us just to get to know each other, to talk about, we were looking at company values and things like that, and how that shows up in the day-to-day. And just by sitting around and making it informal, having something to eat, I got so much more information from the team than I would have if I had given a survey or just asked a series of questions.
Yes.
They really brought up the reality and the realness of what was happening in the workplace, and where they felt changes needed to happen. And I think that that's something that a lot of workplaces don't do, is consult the person. If you've got a neurospicy person on your team, don't read a book about what they might need. Ask them what they need.
Yes.
Most people are going to be able to tell you.
Yes. And will probably appreciate being asked too.
Exactly. Leadership is not about having all the answers. It's about asking the great quality questions.
Yes.
I'm going back quite a few years, but I had a beautiful staff member named Sam. She was just amazing, super neurospicy, but brilliant. She didn't show up at work on time once in 5 years. But she wouldn't be more than 10 minutes late. She might be 3 minutes late, 5 minutes late, 7 minutes late.
Yep.
And I knew for her, getting ready in the morning was a stressful thing. She just struggled with it. And it wasn't that she needed to do something different. She was doing the best job that she could. So for myself as a manager, I needed to be able to manage that within the team, because other people are sitting there going, well, she gets to come in late, why can't I come in late? And the way that I would approach those things was that, yes, Sam would be a couple of minutes late, no doubt. She never ever once on time. It's just not how her brain works. But she would walk in, sit down at her desk, and she would do more work than most people before lunch. And so the people who'd come in early in the coffee room, having a chat, she's already sitting down at her desk and doing work.
Yes.
And so being flexible to allow that made all the difference.
I love that.
And it's being able to recognize different people's needs.
Absolutely.
In the slow time, I would always find extra things for her to do. In the peak time, I was always aware, is she staying late? Is she working through lunch? All of those things to try and help her just keep her nervous system in a nice balanced space.
Great.
While she's being able to produce that incredible quality of work.
Yes, I love that. And I love just how you prevented burnout with her, like for her, like alongside her, and could see all of her strengths and, what she brought to the table, which was amazing. I love that. Thanks for sharing that, Donna. It's awesome. Question for you. What does a healthy leader in real life look like? Not the Instagram version.
Yeah. A healthy leader looks like someone who leads from values,
Love
not
it.
fear or ego.
Yep.
So a healthy leader knows who they are and knows their people, actively listens to their people, genuinely cares for their people, and someone who's comfortable to ask for help. You know, asking for help is a strength. It's not a weakness.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, a healthy leader can see what's happening, but doesn't have that need to control it. You know, leadership is not about control. It's about showing up. And so I believe a healthy leader is someone who shows up for their people, who always has their people's back. You know, even if you make a mistake, that's one of the things that I always tell my teams when I was still working for other people, is that if you make a mistake, come and tell me. Everybody makes mistakes. I have no issue with the mistake. I just don't want to hear about it in a meeting with my boss.
Yes.
I want to be armed with knowledge.
Yes.
And you know, great leaders also look at I guess the company values, but also everybody's why. You know, what is the purpose in there? What really drives your people? And then how can you support them to be able to grow even further?
Yeah, I love that. So good. What about self-care and leadership?
Self-care, yep. I think one of the biggest reasons people burn out is because they feel like they have to do everything all the time. One of the things that I see, especially around leaders, is that lack of willingness to delegate, because I want to control it. And if I give it to someone else to do, they're not going to do it to the quality that I'm looking for.
Yes.
And so, you know, that will burn people out as well, just trying to control the space. You know, when people have to hold on to too much for too long a period of time, we know that that kind of thing will bring on burnout.
Yes.
You know, being reactive rather than responsive. You know, you can tell when someone's in burnout, they're just going through the motions. They don't want to make any choices. You know, if you talk to them, they'll say, I'm not sleeping very well. They'll avoid difficult conversations and things like that. You can see those warning signs from a mile away if you know what it is that you're looking for.
Yes, absolutely. And we know that, you know, being a leader has its challenges. It's fantastic for the people that love being in that space, but it has its challenges. And like what we spoke about earlier in the podcast, it's about people as well, and people are complex. So self-care has to be, and hopefully I'm not sounding like I'm, you know, bossing the listeners around here, but self-care has to be part of a leader's day, week, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And you know, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
So you need to be taking care of yourself and modeling that behavior for your team.
Absolutely.
It's no good if you're telling your team, you know, take more time, stress less, take care of yourself, get great sleep. If you're not doing those things yourself, no one else is going to do them.
No. And they're not going to see them as being important if they're not being modeled.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, if it's just lip service, people are just going to see straight through that and go, no, that doesn't work for me. That's not honest. If you're telling them to do something that you're not already doing. And one of the things, I used to work for Matchworks here in Geelong. And one of the things that we did there and in Genu training is that managers got to have, I think it was like a 2 hour early,
Mm-hmm.
1 day a month,
Yeah.
where you just go to a movie or go and sit on the beach and chill out. It's time for literally for self-reflecting, for
Wow.
seeing where you're at as a leader,
Mm-hmm.
where you need to create change, and just taking that time away from the workplace, to be able to do that, to be able to have that quiet time
Yes.
to self-reflect. And I think that was a very powerful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it shows the value that those organizations put like into their people, how much
Yes,
they value them, and know that looking after yourself equals being a good leader, a great leader.
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
good. So good.
And modeling those behaviors,
Yeah,
I think, is most important.
absolutely. Oh, that good on them for doing that. Yeah, it's so good. Now, if it's okay with you, Donna, I love rapid fire wisdom, I call it. And I always get very curious about the answers that people give. And I love the rapid fire part because, obviously it's whatever comes to us first. And there's
Yes.
just great information and little pieces of, gold sitting in there. So if it's okay with you, just go with your gut,
Okay.
and we'll rapid fire. What's one word to describe great leadership?
Presence,
Oh,
conscious presence.
nice. I'll give you still a point. 2 words: conscious, presence.
Oh,
No,
sorry. I'm
you said one.
dyslexic.
No, you said one, which was present. So that's a tick anyway. No, I'll give you a bonus, a bonus tick because
Thank you.
the conscious presence as well. Wow, so good. Second rapid fire. A common belief about leadership you think is outdated.
Leaders are born, not made,
Nice.
which is
Yeah.
completely false. Leadership is a skill that you
Yeah.
need to practice on a daily basis.
Oh, that is gold. Love it. This is why I love this section so much. A daily habit that makes a big difference.
I train all of my leaders to do this, and I do it in my own life. And I think it's very, very important. Ask 3 questions every day.
Oh,
And I actually ask those questions and get people to ask those questions when they're in different situations that they're trying to deal with.
yeah.
First question is, what am I focused on?
Nice.
Am I focused on the negative or am I focused on the positive?
Mm-hmm.
Um, what does that mean? So if I'm focused on negatives, I'm not going to be able to come up with a solution.
Yeah.
But if I'm focused on positives and moving forward, then that means I'm going to have so much more ability to create change.
Yes.
And then the third question is, what action will I take? So what am I focused on? What does that mean? What action will I take?
Love
And
it.
when you pull back and you ask those 3 questions to yourself, it creates a massive amount of difference, because instantly, if you're maybe in a negative mindset, maybe you've had a really difficult day, you're focusing on the problems, or you're going to be out, what does that mean? We create more problems,
Yes.
rather than taking a step back and going, okay, right now I'm focused on the negative, but I need to take a minute
Yes.
and step over to the space where I'm focusing on a potential solution.
Love it. Oh,
So, what am I focused on? What does it mean? What action will I take?
I certainly hope our listeners have written those 3 questions down because, yeah, fantastic advice there. Something leaders don't talk about enough.
Self-care and reflection.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I would absolutely agree. And I find the busier they get, the less that they do that, and the less they think about it, and the roller coaster begins.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
100%. We need to know where we're at, where we're coming from, in order to be
Absolutely.
able to support others. And it starts with self-care.
Yeah, perfect. And the last rapid fire, best piece of advice you've ever been given.
leadership is an inside job.
Mm. And I'm so grateful that you have shared that with us today on the podcast. I know that has given me, just more information in regards to what I do and helping people. And I think, definitely so useful to our listeners as well. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for your rapid fire answers. They were so good.
I panicked a little bit because I'm dyslexic. If there's
Yeah.
a timer, that can just literally shift my brain into overwhelm.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it's always interesting with those kinds of things.
Yes. Well, I'm so glad I didn't have a timer. I didn't
No,
even.
you didn't have a timer. You didn't overwhelm me.
Good. I didn't even actually think about having a timer. So I'm glad I didn't. And I can absolutely appreciate how a timer adds overwhelm, very quickly.
It does.
Doesn't it?
And it's not, I actually found it really interesting when I first joined BNI, which is Business Networking Group.
Yeah.
They have everybody stands up and they do a 45-second pitch on their business.
Yes.
Now, I public speak for a living.
Yeah.
It's a little timer on the screen, and I would stand up and go, yeah, and my name's Donna, and I worked for.
Yeah.
Instantly, my brain went into complete overwhelm simply because there was a timer on the screen.
That makes so much sense.
And when it comes to being neurodivergent, that's something that a lot of people have issues with. So if you think if they're doing an exam, maybe it's a young person at school having to do an exam, or, being given a task, you need to make a 5-minute presentation.
Yes.
Just the addition of time.
Yes.
Literally can send someone into complete overwhelm. And I know for myself, if I have to do something that's like that,
yes,
if I'm the person in charge of that, I can tend to do it. But if someone else is rapid firing questions at me, my brain just goes on a holiday.
And
says, I'll see you later.
That makes so much sense. And it's funny, isn't it? Because, we all have our own perception of what words mean and what activities mean. And rapid fire, to me, like, when I was planning the podcast today and thought, I would love to, have some rapid fire questions. Interestingly, it was never about speed.
No.
For me. But I can appreciate for some people, absolutely, just those terms could throw them into a spin straight away. So again, this is an example of psychological safety potentially at work regarding we all have our own perception of things. And if we don't have the safe conversations around clarity and meaning, people end up on different pages and it gets messy and murky and unsafe. So, just getting that clarity around what do you understand this to mean? This is what I, feel that it means. Let's bring it together.
Exactly. And it's when it comes to people who are neurospicy, so my favorite term is
I love it.
neurospicy because we're all a bit different.
Yes.
You can, and I know for myself, I can do incredibly high level work in a very short space. But simple things like catching a bus or a train is just not something I can do on my own. And it's quite common for people who are ADHD and on the spectrum is that you can do really amazing stuff, but very simple things that other people don't think about is almost impossible for us.
Yes.
So I remember I was working at Deakin. We had an entire division going on I think we did like a team building or something like that. And people are getting on the bus and someone comes up to me and says, Donna's awesome. She'll be able to do this. Hands me a clipboard with names on it.
Yes.
And I have to tick off the name. Now that sounds really simple. I'm not great with names and I have the type of dyslexia. I can never remember what the term is because it's very complicated. but I don't recognize people's faces.
Mm-hmm.
So if I see a face out of context,
Yes.
and it may be someone I know very well, but I can't work it out.
Gotcha.
And even my children, if I close my eyes and try and describe my children's faces, I can't do it.
Yeah, okay.
Because my brain just doesn't do that.
Yes.
And so there's this list of, people are walking on the bus. Hi, Donna. Hi, Donna.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to work out what the first person's name is. 10 people are now on the bus.
Yes.
And I'm just standing completely overwhelmed.
Totally.
And my boss walked up to me and said, "Have you ticked everyone off?" I said, "Actually, I haven't ticked anyone." I said, "It was so overwhelming. I couldn't keep up with the people. I couldn't work out who was who." And so
Yes.
someone had to go onto my bus and literally tick people off one at a
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
Because my brain just doesn't do that.
Thank you so
Even though
much.
it's a very simple thing, it just doesn't, so neurospicy, we can often do really amazing things.
Yes.
Struggle with very simple things.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I can guarantee there's listeners who will be sitting there listening and thinking, oh, this is so refreshing to hear. It's not just me.
It's not just me. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I really am so grateful. I'm so grateful for you coming on the podcast, and so grateful with the sharing that you've done today. It's where the gold is for our people, and you've done it beautifully. So thank you so much.
Oh no, thank you.
This has been, Donna, wow, such a valuable conversation, and I always like to call them conversations. I feel like that's the psychologically safe way to, to go about things as well. But it's just been so wonderful. There's so much wisdom that you've brought in today and shared with us today. Before we wrap up, I would love you to tell us or to share with us, where can people find you? Where can they connect with you, learn more about you, your work, who you work with? Your business is Mentor My Success, and I will put your details in the notes, podcast notes. But please tell us, where can we find you, and have you got any upcoming courses, programs, events, or anything that you'd like us to know about?
Yeah, no problem. So you can find all the information at my website. At the moment, I'm actually building some new website pages, so there'll be even more information up there very soon. So I do everything from personal support. So some of the leaders who come to me want personalized counseling so that they're stepping up in themselves, and then we work on the leadership stuff. I run 2 different workshops. So one of my workshops is called the Accidental Leaders Program, which is for those leaders who are promoted because they're great at their jobs, but they don't have the leadership skills.
So needed.
And yeah, I wrote that program specifically because I was seeing so many people coming to me saying, "My boss is terrible." And then when we look back, the boss has just been promoted because they're great at their job.
Yes.
And so I wrote the Accidental Leaders Program for them, and we've been running that now for the last 5 years.
Oh, wonderful.
And we get rave reviews. It's just such a fabulous workshop. And then I've just started doing the Unshakable Leaders Program, which is for people experiencing imposter syndrome. So again, when I'm out mentoring and working in different workplaces, I'm seeing a lot of people with imposter syndrome.
Yes.
And so I've just brought in a 1-day workshop for that.
Great.
But I do corporate consulting. We look at business, everything from how to step up as a leader right through to how to scale your business.
Wonderful.
And I love it all. I can't just do one thing. My brain would get very, very bored.
Yes, yes.
So I like to be able to offer different services to my people.
Love that. So good. So amazing. So would it be fair to say, if people go to your website, That's the best place to
go to my website, click on, there's a link there that gives you a free 20-minute chat. That's the best way to come through, because then we can chat about who you are, what your challenges are right now, and then find the best place for you.
Wonderful. And I will, listeners, put Donna's details in the show notes as well. Donna, thank you so much. Thank you for your time, for giving your time to us today. I really appreciate it. Enjoy building those extra web pages. And I really can't wait to meet you in person.
I know, it's going to be fantastic. I'm looking forward to that.
So am I. So we will have to sync our diaries, and I very much look forward to that. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate it. Listeners, have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you so much for tuning in. We look forward to bringing you another podcast episode very soon. Until then, have a wonderful Wednesday, everybody. Thank you, and see you later.